All right. Here we are,
Good evening, everyone.
Friday night.
Welcome to the lounge where Bill and I hang out on a Friday evening.
And it's going to be a fun time, folks. Let me start off by saying thank you for being here, all of you. We appreciate you being fans of the show. I really would love to know in the comments what you think about Mormonism After Dark, whether you're liking this format, whether you like this new show. We've been out now for several months. And
I miss the jazz music in the background personally.
yeah, it was getting to the point, RFM, where the jazz music was distorting our speaking and people were speaking out about it. And so I liked it too. I miss it. But yeah, the show must go on.
Okay.
How was your week?
My week was phenomenal, old bean. I mean, just so much happening. We had a great show on Wednesday night about all these trials that Joseph Smith went through. I mean, you went detailed a whole bunch of them, around a dozen. You didn't even get to really a third of them all, but you sure got the interesting ones.
There are 34 of them. Is that true?
I think that's what you said.
Yeah, and then there were 34 wives, because we mentioned that there were 17 in the image, and that was a hell of a lot of women for one man. But he had 20. Yeah. So
as Groucho Marx once said, it's certainly been a gala day, and a gala day is enough for any man.
Yeah, he had more than one woman per day for a month.
Yeah. And that's as far down that road as I'm going with you, young man.
All right. Well, we'll stop doing that. I'll just tell you tonight, we got a few things for you, and we're not clowning around. RFM can explain that one to you in a little while.
No clowning.
But I'll just note there was a church history conference on today. It came on at like 9 a.m. this morning, and it lasted throughout, several large chunks of the day. They took some breaks for lunch and stuff, but there were some panel discussions and some interesting conversation. And thought tonight we'd play a few of these clips so that folks can kind of get a feel for what some of these things are that were said and done. I'll just note, here's the main slide that showed up, RFM. This was what they called it. So we can
find out about this.
Somebody sent it to me. I think I don't know if it was in our newscast group, if it was Rebecca or where it was, but I just saw somebody sent this. And I wanted to pull a couple of clips off this because I knew this was going to be interesting.
I Am in Your Midst was the name of this conference. That was the title. That's funny because that was like the subtitle of the movie. The call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, The Midst.
I Am in Your Midst.
The Stephen King movie. So I am in your midst. Jesus.
I think that might be The Mist.
Well, it probably is, because otherwise the mist wouldn't be very dangerous, would it? If it was just in our midst.
I got to tell you, they made a really effective movie out of that short story. And by the way, Bill, that was the first Stephen King story I ever read, was The Mist, because I think it was the first story in the collection, Skeleton Crew.
Most of them are good ones, but you got a good one.
Yes.
Yeah. I Am in Your Midst. Jesus Christ at the Center of Church History Conference, September 5th and 6th. So it must have some more sessions tomorrow. But since we were on tonight, I thought this would be interesting. And I'll give it, this is your good old friend here, Kyle McKay.
Oh my gosh, there's my old missionary companion. He used to look at me when I would goof up whatever it was I was making for dinner. And he'd go, "Oh, Elder Radio Free Mormon, you've done it again.
You overcooked the mac and cheese, huh?" He was in charge.
The
he gave the opening speech. He let everything off, and you can tell that this was under his direction.
But he's the church historian.
Yeah. So he has this first soundbite here, and in this, he just sets the stage for things, and we can talk about this after it plays. So here it is.
Okay.
A couple of years ago, Keith Erickson and I sat for an interview with the Church News. Keith's one of our historians. A question was asked about criticisms leveled at Joseph Smith. I will always remember Keith's response. He pointed out how in the four Gospels of the New Testament, there are all sorts of things going on around Jesus that are a little off, even among his apostles. They sometimes don't understand what he tries to teach. There's occasionally contention or disputation among them, the apostles. Some of them jockey for position or recognition. They are sometimes unable to do what he gave them power and commandment to do. Some abandon him and deny him. One of them betrays him, and another is out there cutting off ears. Or at least he cut off one ear.
Is that Van Gogh?
All of this
Was Van Gogh an
is going
apostle?
on among the apostles of the Lord Jesus Christ.
I didn't know that.
But somehow we are not thrown off by any of it. Why? Well, it's because Jesus Christ is right in the center, the midst of it all. And if he is in the center, it just doesn't matter what mistakes or potential distractions are happening in the periphery. He is the focus, and all is well. And whatever isn't well will somehow be made well by him.
He's that kind of a guy. He can make those things well.
What do you think of that, of what he's saying there?
Well, let me see. I was actually reading too much in the live chat. I apologize. It's nice to see his face. It's nice to hear Elder McKay's voice. What a great companion he was. Possibly the best companion I had. Just a super person. No surprise to me that he's risen through the ranks. And it's not just his looks, it's also his character, his personality, and I'm sure his dedication and zeal and obedience.
So I hear you saying you look up to him and respect him for what he brought in terms of being a missionary companion and treating you. And but he's making a point that the apostles fuck everything up, and Jesus'
never change.
Jesus' apostles fuck everything up, and who cares, because Jesus is in the middle of that, and so nobody is running away or abandoning the faith, because we all, as Christians in this moment, don't get bothered by the apostles fucking everything up, because Jesus is there and he's not fucking it up. It seems like he's trying to say that the church leaders, guys, I get it. I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
The church leaders, they fuck everything up. They make mistakes. They cut off ears. They're bumbling idiots who sometimes do the wrong thing.
By the way, I know that was a reference to Peter cutting off the ear of the person that's named, I think, Malchus, Malchus, only in the Gospel of Luke. Do we have the name? I think it was the Van Gogh thing was a joke. But yes, what he's basically preparing the field for is the idea that, leaders of the church have made all kinds of mistakes and goof things up every which way. And this is in the Mormon church, in the LDS church, in the LDS church's history, right? Because it's about history. So, but that's not important, guys, okay? Because they cocked it up in the New Testament as well. And so they're always goofing things up. But the important thing is that amongst all this cocking up, right in the center of all this cocking up, is Jesus. So you just keep looking at Jesus. Everything else is in the periphery. And as long as you keep looking at Jesus, all is well, with the, I think, implied, though unstated, assertion that, and the LDS church is true.
Yeah, and I want to follow that up by asking you the question. So the question that to me is begging to be asked is that Kyle McKay is telling the members of the church here that they need to give a pass to modern day leaders because they're no different than the apostles of Jesus's day. They're worthy of giving them grace and allowing mistakes to be present in the same way that the apostles of old were allowed to have mistakes and have done the wrong thing. Why is it different, RFM? Why do you and I immediately get that Mormon leaders don't fit the same bill that ancient apostles fit? Why would
everybody in the LDS church knows that's the case? They just want to put it in one side of their brain, one half of their brain, and the other part in the other half of the brain, so that hopefully they'll never come into contact with each other, because that's when the problems start. That's when the problems start. Everybody knows that the church today is completely different from the church that we learned about in church from the 1830s and 1840s, and Joseph Smith, and the heavens are open, and God is throwing down revelations like hell isn't having any, and there's spiritual gifts everywhere, and there's angels on the rooftop. There's all sorts of crazy things going on. Not going on anymore, right? Now, it would be one thing if the leaders of the church said, yeah, that was then, this is now, and we're just managing the church until Jesus manages to show up. But that's not what they say. They claim that they are prophets with the same keys and the same gifts and the same powers as Joseph Smith. They just don't have any receipts. And after a while, that gets old.
Yeah. I sit and I think about the apostles of old. Again, he does cut off an ear, and they do bicker with each other. And they sometimes have an unhealthy ego at work, and they feel some pride, and Jesus has to put them in their place. But Jesus corrects his apostles quickly, and they acknowledge that they went too far. He has ways of, in that moment, nudging them, and they seem to respond to that. And when I look at LDS leaders, they've been lying and cheating and deceiving people, and they never get the memo. And so they keep doing these unhealthy things, and there's no accountability. There's no change. There's no acknowledgement to the crowd that they've offended, that they see that they've made a mistake and their behavior is bad and that they need to straighten up. There's no repentance by them. Whereas, at least in the New Testament, I can pick out moments where Jesus is like, you silly, like, catch up with me here. And they would respond to that.
Yeah, the critical moment is the time in church history when the leaders of the church were able to get the membership to accept the idea that sustaining was not voting for them. It was simply a meaningless way of saying, go get them.
Yeah.
It was at that point, once the membership accepted that, then the leadership can do whatever they want because there is nothing to stop them.
If believers really took their leaders seriously, they would expect them to be vulnerable, to be accountable, to talk openly about mistakes. That's what gospel's all about, is that you step forward and you say, yeah, what I did yesterday that's the old me. I've been reborn. I'm a new creature. Mormonism has people going like, no, we're going to put a suit and tie on, but we're not going to talk about who I really am and what I really have done and where I've really grown in real ways that have put behind me the mistakes of old. I don't get it. The next one here, I'll just show you here. The next one is a lady comes on, and she's not part of the program. She's just a person in the audience, and she's allowed to ask a question. And so she asked your old mission companion about the recent newspaper article. I think it was was it the New York Times or the Wall Street
Journal, I think. Hey, Bill, you know what just hits me?
Yeah.
I just want you to understand that I rode bicycles through the streets of Japan right next to that guy.
Yeah. And you two were there with a purpose to share the gospel. And now years later, and again, you've always seen the world different than the person next to you, just like everybody, but you two did this common thing, and you guys end up so far on different places, whereas you offer critiques on the church, and he's as loyal of a servant as they come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And of course, I see immediately what you're saying about ending up in such different places, but then the thought comes to me, or are they really that different at all?
Yeah. They might be a lot more same than people think, huh?
Yeah, they might have gone in opposite directions so far that they came around and met at the back.
Yeah. Absolutely. So here a lady asked him about that recent Wall Street Journal article that came out.
This is a little bit different tone, but a couple of days ago, there was a disturbing article published in the Wall Street Journal featuring ex-Mormons and their influencers. And it was just drenched with biased historical references and wrong references to the church.
Sure.
And I know we expect that, but I'm just wondering, the church history department produces all this wonderful information, and I was raised in the church, but I'm learning new things from you guys all the time. for academics and for members.
Geez, I think she's sitting next to one of the Kirtland mummies.
News media in a
She is.
source that is palatable for the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times, to be able to teach them our history so that they don't.
It's either that or we finally found
100
Brezhnev.
years old about polygamy and Joseph Smith's. Anyway, that's
Right.
just my worry.
So thank you. And really, the church communication department does an amazing job of doing this. And notwithstanding their efforts, some people just don't. And so that will forever be the case. We think that we enjoy a position right now in the public eye or the media that I'm not sure we've ever done it. And it's not because of the church. Well, it is, but it's also because of the people. Somebody knows somebody who's a member of the church, and that's what makes all the difference. This was a careless article, and I'll leave it to Mike Lee to write the rebuttal on X, which he did. But you're right. Your statement is right. We're never going to be done with this.
No, you're never going to be done with this. You're going to be doing this till the end of time, because you can't answer questions when you don't have the answers. All you do historically, and hopefully this conference will be different. I've got my fingers crossed, so I don't know if it will be, because what they tend to do is say they're going to deal with the difficult questions regarding church history, and then they spend hours not talking at all about any of the issues or any of the facts, only in vagaries and thought-stopping cliches.
You're right. Till the end of time, they are going to have to deal with questions that point at the truth claims of the church not holding up, that its history not meshing with those, and that its leaders have lied and deceived since the very beginning, including abusing little kids from 20 something to 2025, leaving spaces for those things to happen and not fixing the things that they could easily fix, and making justifications for your founder doing whatever the hell he wanted to children, making excuses for them. They're going to have to battle, because they never, as you point out, they never offer a reconciliation. They never have an answer. They're going to battle the critics until the end of time. Are the Methodists fighting critics right now?
Not that I know.
Are the
Lutherans? The Lutherans are fighting no, they're not either.
No. The people who constantly have to fight a large segment of its members who have left might be doing something to cause that.
Yes. Somebody might think that there's a reason for these people to not be happy about how they were treated.
Yeah. They're not happy about the way they're treated. And it gets going here right from the beginning. So this one here is grace and the atonement solves the problem. So I'll put this up on the screen. View slideshow.
I'll try not to talk over the speakers.
It is frustrating, and there are things you want to say, and I get it. So
the Brezhnev comment was gold.
One of the folks in this panel discussion is Keith Erickson. He's the only person I caught the name of. I didn't see names being put on the screen. I didn't hear the name that the other folks were referred to. But Keith Erickson, you'll remember him. Yep, the fraud expert, works for the church history department. So here is her. Again, these are the historians or academic folks trying to help people who are having trouble with the history of the church. And here's how she solves the problem.
So we have a wealth of experience here and a wealth of knowledge from our panelists. And I want to just start off with kind of a more general question to the three of you about how the atonement of Jesus Christ can help us as we deal with challenging questions or challenging issues in church history. So Claire, if you want to start us off.
Claire.
Absolutely. I love that question, because I think just as Elder McKay was admonishing us this morning, it helps us to center Jesus Christ in our study of church history. But it also calls to mind one of my favorite lines from the Preach My Gospel manual, where it says, all that is unfair about life can be made right through the atonement of Jesus Christ. And I like to include in that all that seems unfair about the things that happened in church history can be made right through the atonement of Jesus Christ. The things that we don't quite understand, the people who were imperfect, who made decisions that perhaps seem wrong to us, Those things can be made right because of the grace of our Savior, Jesus Christ. I am so grateful for a church that is centered on Jesus Christ and his message of hope through his atonement. That is something that truly began this whole process of the restoration. I think of Joseph Smith and of his account of the first vision and what led him to the grove, that it was his question about the salvation of his soul. Yes, he was wondering about which church to join, but as we were reminded recently in General Conference, he went to the grove not just to find out what was right, but to know what to do what was right in terms of the salvation of his soul. And I think that's the truth for all of us. When we come to the study of church history, we are coming not to just know a few facts about our past, but we are to know what we will do about those facts. In our own lives, how will we allow the atonement of Jesus Christ and our knowledge of it to change us and to dictate how we live our lives? And my hope is that as we study the people of the past, who are imperfect just like ourselves, that we will extend them the grace that God offers to us through his Son.
I'm thinking cue cards wouldn't be a horrible idea about now. So here's the deal, okay? I'm totally confused because she's spouting words and I'm trying to make sense of them. And I'm having a difficult time as she goes on and on. The first thing is, what is she talking about? What does she mean when she says that these difficult aspects of church history will all be made well or whole or healed or whatever it was she said, maybe you remember, by the blood of Jesus Christ? Really? So Joseph Smith getting married to teenage girls behind his wife's back, other women who are already married, Jesus' atonement is going to make that okay? See, I got a problem with that because some things should not be made okay. Because to make them okay ends up making what is not okay accepted. And I think that happens a lot in Mormonism.
God's grace is sufficient that you need not concern yourself with the mistakes of leaders. It is a way of saying,
give Brother Joseph a break.
Because it dismisses anything, as you just pointed out, it dismisses anything that any leader, current or past, has done. And it establishes, look, the atonement takes care of them. It's none of your business. Move on from this. And she's saying it nice, but nobody wants to honor that these questions are so complex and messy, and only because they're so heavily weighted in the critic's favor. And you're trying to figure this stuff out, and you can't. And then you want to talk about it, and instead of talking about it, it's like, no, the grace of God takes care of Elder Oaks lying about the electroshock hoax. You don't have to worry about it. And it's a game that gets played. We're all trying to silence each other. They're not allowed to say what they really think. They're not allowed to say what's really going on in their heads.
No, this is not the church history you're looking for.
Yeah. This is not the church history you're looking at. They're here to do a whole day and a half of conference on church history and how to solve the sticky problems. And there's one thing they do not want to talk about, and that's the messy problems in church history.
Yeah. It's like Hamlet without Hamlet, as Hugh Nibley used to say. You got nothing. You're calling it one thing. And it's like Colby Reddish likes to quote from Jurassic Park. The first one, I think Jeff Goldblum saying, you will have, because you remember they're on the trek on the car that's on the track. For a while, they're not seeing anything. And Jeff Goldblum says, you will have dinosaurs on your dinosaur tour, won't you?
Yeah. Like,
there's no dinosaurs. There's no church history in their church history conference.
No.
This is crazy. And by the way, so everybody knows, when Bill and I were talking about this earlier today, one of the first things I said to Bill was, did you actually watch that? He said, I hadn't watched it all, but I've seen a lot of it. And I do have you right on that, don't I? Did I quote you correct? Okay. And the thing I remember you saying was that I had asked, I said, okay, so tell me, do they actually bring up any facts in church history, or do they just talk in generalities and try and, come up with solutions without talking about the problems? And Bill said they didn't talk about a one.
The only story they tell, and they tell it multiple times, is the lost 116 pages.
Damn those 116 pages.
But they don't address any of the real concerns there.
Yeah.
It's more of a story to say God figures this stuff out. If you would just trust God, he has Mormon, the abridger, adding at the very end of his abridgment, he's got him adding the book of Nephi. So don't concern yourselves with any of the issues here. I just want to note too, RFM, notice that the first two talks here are very strongly insinuating that our leaders make a lot of mistakes that would cause concern, but the atonement takes care of that, and grace takes care of that, and Jesus takes care of that. So don't worry about it. But they're acknowledging, like, there's no longer that we get to pretend these guys are pretty clean. We have now church conferences where the focus of the discussion is that, yeah, our leaders suck, but I don't know, we have to still trust them, so have faith.
They're all we've got, really.
They're all we've got.
We're paying them an awful lot of money, so we should get some use out of them. By the way, Bill, remember what was that I was saying to you also on the phone about these guys, about the apostles? It'll come to me in a second. It had to do with, I was talking about, did they ever talk about any facts? And you said no. And then we talked about, yes, they can't bring up the facts. The reason they can't talk about the facts is because the facts are the problem. The facts are the problem with church history. So they can't talk about the facts. And then I thought, and I think I said, okay, Bill, you go ahead, and I want you to take this position to argue, okay, that the Axis powers, Germany, Italy, and Japan, are the ones who won World War II historically. Now go and defend that proposition as if it really happened. That's the problem. That's the same problem the Mormons in, the apologists are in. All the facts are against them because that's not the way it happened.
Every time I open my mouth about how the Axis powers won and try to make an argument for it, you're going to know history well enough to say the next obvious thing, which will make me look stupid. So
that's
I
why
better not
that's
say
why
it.
you've got to avoid the facts, and you've got to talk about anything other than the facts. And ideally, you talk about ways and systems and strategies to be okay with church history without ever learning anything about it or dealing with any of the messiness in the church history. And if you do that long enough, you will have enough material to fill a 1.5-day conference just with that.
I think we'd also have to be honest. There may be some of these questions that there is no answer to.
Yes.
Those, I think, would be the ones we avoid.
They should have had that quote lead off the conference, because this is the game they're playing. These are questions that if we answered, actually there's going to be more questions behind them, and we're not going to eventually be able to answer those if we walk those out. So we're better off just staying away from it altogether. And so then you get the next guy who says he takes us right into the space where this isn't the church's fault that people are losing faith. The problem is can be pointed to some other place, and here is what he points it to.
Maybe it's me.
I also think when we go to our Savior, if we make him the source, if we put him centrally as we seek to deal with these issues before us, as we reach out to him with our questions, we realize it's not only about getting answers. Sometimes there aren't answers. Sometimes it takes a while for those answers to come.
Sometimes the only answers are really bad.
Gain clarity and understanding, which helps us as we go through that process. I was thinking in the Gospel of Mark, a man brings his son to Jesus Christ to heal his son. And Jesus says to him, you know, if thou believe, all things are possible. And the man says, I believe. And then he says, help me in my unbelief. I think that powerfully represents the conflict we can sometimes have between our faith and what we believe, and maybe sometimes a wavering uncertainty. But I think it's interesting to look at how the Savior responded to that. It wasn't okay, go away, get some more belief, come back, and we'll try again. He immediately healed the man's son. And so as we go to our Savior, making use of that atoning sacrifice, Alma talked about it, didn't he? Just a desire to believe, just that faith the size of a mustard seed is enough for our Savior to start working with us.
I feel like I just listened to a lecture from Mr. Bean.
There's a lot of words there. It's definitely word salad. But what he's saying, it's this idea that when you have a doubt, when you have questions about church leaders' behavior, rather than us being able to say out loud, help the leaders be honest. Hey, right in front of leaders, everybody say it out loud. Like, let's help the leaders be more honest, Heavenly Father. Let's help the leaders make amends for the things they did wrong. Let's help our leaders to be, would you please help our leaders to be more humble, God? We can't say that out loud. It's wrong to criticize the leaders of the church, even if the criticism is true. Instead, it's pointed back at you and help your unbelief. You're the problem. If you would solve your unbelief issue, all of this goes away. And nobody gets to say out loud, like, no, it's not my unbelief. Those guys don't behave in ways that I've been taught are necessary to maintain the Holy Ghost as a constant companion. And they appear to be lying and cheating and deceiving and stealing at every turn. And I think maybe we ought to talk about them. No. Help thou your unbelief. You're the problem. I wrote down, is there a threshold in your mind where enough barriers would exist contrary to faith, where rather than the church being true, it is almost more certain that you were misled or deceived and the church is actually not true? And for every one of these people who will speak in this, the answer is they're always going to figure out, no matter how big the problems, they're going to figure out how to keep believing. Because if the problems could be big enough for them to leave, they would have left already.
I am still blown away by the fact that, as you've told me, they don't talk about any of the church history problems in a seminar, a 1.5-day seminar devoted to dealing with church history problems. There is nothing more damning that I could conceive of than this, as far as church history and the problems it poses to the members and even to the church's own historians.
Yeah. And in the second, so the first session was them having that panel. And in this one here, and by the way, folks, I did put the link in the chat. You can come into the show if you want to comment on any of this. We'd welcome it. We've got a lot of things tied to this tonight, but would love your thoughts. So please jump into the live stream. You can visit the show, clicking that link there that's in the live chat. If you want to be anonymous, just keep the camera off and you can change your name. In this next one, this sets it up. This is just the moderator of this panel asking the question that they'll then begin to answer.
I'd like to ask each of you how you have personally dealt with challenging issues in church history, how you have been able to find peace when you've come across something that seems troubling to you.
So he's asked them, how in the past have they handled difficulties with church issues?
Yes.
So you would think they're going to have to name a church issue and explain how they reconciled it.
You would think so. I doubt that's going to happen, but notice the assumption. The assumption in the question is that, of course, they've already had this happen to them.
Yeah.
Think about it. Compare this with any other religion. Do you expect that, I don't know, Lutheran history, they're going to be having historians up there having a panel discussion, and a question is going to be asked, would you mind sharing how it is that you've resolved a troubling aspect of Lutheran history?
Yeah. And then somebody's going to have to name an issue. But here, the Mormon folks doing this game.
Yes.
I'll just show you too, by the way, when you get pictures of this, this was a lady who was asking a question. All those chairs are empty.
Oh, my word.
Yeah. Here's another section. This guy, And by the way, about every image they showed of people, about 1/3 to half the people in the grouping I recognized.
Really?
Yeah.
So those are nicer seats.
In fact, if I can find, I'll show you one of them. Do you know that guy there sitting behind? The guy.
Oh, it's hang on. It's Stephen B. Smoot.
Stephen B. Smoot. That is he. And so there were several people. I saw folks from the.
You can't see his leather Lederhosen in this picture.
Yeah, I saw several apologists, several folks from the church history department, and recognized a lot of faces. And so that tells me as they pan around the room that this conference is maybe not as well attended as they wanted. And a lot of the folks who are sitting in those seats are the insiders club who are there to just support and make things look good.
It looks like Rob Reiner made it too.
Yeah, Rob, right there. There he is. All right, let me put up this.
Meathead.
So he asked the question, how have you solved issues in church history? And Keith Erickson, the fraud expert, is going to tell us that not having the Holy Ghost is the issue, and that's how he solves it.
Keith Erickson literally is a fraud expert, has written a book about detecting frauds, but I'm starting to suspect he's decided to use his powers for evil.
Yeah. Something's going on here because this guy should know better. I mean,
he knows how to pull the wool over people's eyes. He's an expert.
He literally lays out the criteria by which a fraud can be discovered and discerned, and then separates the first half from his talk into the second half of his talk where he testifies that the LDS church is true. Meanwhile, it met every one of the criteria he went and explained.
Right. So you tell, I'm an expert on detecting frauds. By the way, would you like to hear the missionary discussions?
Right. So here's him putting the onus on keeping worthy of the Holy Ghost.
Okay, I won't ask.
I think the second thing for me that has been helpful is to make a conscientious study of the way the Spirit of the Lord works. That is the channel that God has given us to find answers and peace and enlightenment. I compare it to, if you don't have the YouTube app on your phone and somebody says, oh, hey, check out this video. You're going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't see that. I don't have the app. I don't know. I can't interact. Well, the Holy Ghost is the app. And if we don't have it downloaded in our lives, if we don't know how it works, if we don't know how to recognize the fruits of the Spirit, we don't know the bounds of where that's not the Spirit, that's not how it operates. If we don't understand phrases about the workings of the Spirit, the way it will whisper, the way it will guide. And so seeking to really make that channel clear and effective has for me has always gone hand in hand with just trying to learn more stuff.
Can I just say that I think that's really problematic to be saying that I'm studying my religion's history, and when I feel good about what I'm reading, then that's the Holy Ghost saying that's true. And when I start feeling bad about what I'm reading, then that's the Holy Ghost saying, whoa, 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 you're getting too far over here. Let's stay over here where you feel good. I'm surprised the fraud expert couldn't see that.
Yeah, and I'll just note what we've already said, which is that this is once again blaming the victim, the person who cannot make it work. It's your fault for not staying worthy of the Holy Ghost.
Yes, the Holy Ghost, the Holy app, we should say. It's the Holy app.
And also, he says the Holy Ghost is the key to getting answers. And yet, people in the church aren't getting answers. They think they've got the Holy Ghost, and they still have to put everything on a shelf because the answers aren't there for them.
Yes, well, his dissertation, I understand, was on the war stories of Paul H. Dunn.
Yeah, well, what a hero he was. We should all give honor and remembrance to the great Paul H. Dunn, who served in, I think, three of the armed forces and saved a multitude of people in each.
He could tell a story, that Paul H. Dunn. He's a spellbinder, I tell you.
Yeah. He threw grenades right-handed and curveballs left-handed, that Paul H. Dunn.
I like it.
Yeah. So we've got Jay with us. Jay, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys?
Awesome.
Great. Have you ever played semi-pro for the St. Louis Cardinals?
Sadly, no. I was the wrong gender.
Well, neither has Paul H. Dunn.
Yeah, the two of you haven't.
I think I got that right. But
Yep.
anyway, what brings you to our humble show?
Well, I love the topic tonight, and I wanted to say that growing up and being raised in a Protestant faith, the questioning historicity of our faith or of texts was always done with a very well, I shouldn't say always. It was mostly done with a very scientific approach. So it's so strange to me to hear these speeches saying absolutely nothing. There's no like, even though I may disagree with the historicity of the church I grew up in or the texts that are referenced, their logic at least makes sense to me because they're
Mhm.
actually trying to say something.
Yes. Yeah, it
And
seems more and more that the church historians here, leaders, spend a lot of time trying to say as little as possible. It's like they don't want to say anything they can get pinned down on or held accountable for.
no, exactly.
And they tell you up front, you're allowed to ask questions. There's a Q&A section after each of the things that happen. 2 issues with that. I saw people who were reading questions off of cards. So I know on some level, at the very least, somebody wrote out their card as so not to be nervous. Like that could have happened. But it was multiple people who were reading off of a card. And that indicates to me the most reasonable thing is that it was plotted out, like what's going to be asked, what's going to be said. And that makes more sense to me knowing that it seemed like the audience is the academic side of the apologetic, phase of Mormonism. So there were lots of folks from the church history department, as well as fair Mormon and interpreter and that kind of stuff. There were folks like that there.
So they're just siloed. They're not actually having conversations.
Not really an open dialogue. And as you point out, the church used to love science. If it could point out that there were other societies that wrote on gold plates, if there was some mathematical distance from Jerusalem to
there was a huge hullabaloo back, I think, in the early 80s when it was figured out that the Mayans actually were not universally peaceful, but were actually very violent and engaged in a lot of warfare, because that had been a strike against the Book of Mormon, at least for the Central American people, the Mesoamerican people. But now that all of a sudden became a plus. But of course, it's not really a plus, is it, Bill? We talk about that on other podcasts, I remember.
Yeah, it is not. And now what you end up with is you have historians helping people with the history by refusing to talk about history. Imagine any other place in the world where you're like, I'm going to go get a historian. We're going to have him be the featured speaker of our conference. He's written books on Abraham Lincoln and whatever. And then when we have him talk, he's going to tell us how to avoid the history at all cost. It makes no sense. And so you're right, Jay. They don't want to talk about the data points, the facts, the archaeology. They don't want to do that. They don't want
They want to do. Oh, I'm just go ahead.
No, I was just going to point out that, the Dead Sea Scrolls, for example, are on display right now at the Reagan Library in Simi Valley.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things provide actual physical data. You can, but the fights or the contention in other faiths about history would be like Lutherans, Presbyterians, whatever, Protestants, they're going to go like, well, let's talk about the canonicity of scripture or the how we included this or developing the creeds. Those are things that are specific, but nowhere in these talks do the LDS leaders even mention they don't even mention a specific topic or a specific touchstone.
They don't want to talk about any of the issues in church history. The historians, these guys should be happy to go, look, we're the historians. Ask us anything. And you should be able to ask tough question after tough question.
Mm-hmm.
They should be proud and honored.
It worked out well in Sweden.
Yeah.
Or the Adam and Diamond, is it that
Adam and Diamond where the guy rolled the mower?
Oh, R.I.P. And then also the Nahum thing, like that's just, it's just facts. Like if you can't even ask about that, and have a coherent,
Mm.
rational conversation.
Mm.
Wherever that may lead. I mean, your panel the other day with Jim Bennett, like he was open to having that going, oh yeah, I haven't checked the primary sources. Okay, that's respectful. I can respect that.
Yeah, at least he's being honest. He's not trying to make his answer something more than it was, though it may have been ill-advised for him to give it in the first instance.
Well,
it's a strange thing that that a historian doesn't want to have that conversation. You can't ask any questions about it. You'll see here in this next one. I'll keep you on, Jay. I want to ask you. You were a never Mormon.
correct. But I have a a, a low key degree in all things Mormonism.
Gotcha.
Every time I see the missionaries in my area or in my community, I always go out of my way to say hello to them, talk to them. And I always walk away thinking, wow, I think I probably know more than you do. And that's scary. Anyway,
It's also
And you
telling-
probably do.
What's
You
that?
do. You know more than the vast majority of Mormons at
You
this
do.
point. I guarantee you.
It's also telling if you have a degree in history and you put yourself out front to help people with questions about church history, then your academic side should win out. You should be willing to not be emotionally attached and allow people to delve into history with you so that they can get into your head and know the things that you know so that they can make sense of things. That's what every historian in every other field does.
Absolutely.
That in this instance, it's no, you get to have only this tiny little bit of access to me, and I will not touch church history with a 10-foot pole. It's so strange. In this one, the audience who are post-Mormons, they're going to feel, and again, you shouldn't lead the audience, but I will. They're going to feel negative things about this one. They're going to feel like they're being blamed much more than the past ones. In this one, she mentions darkness. She talks about how the sources make us feel, like if we read a source that's not faith promoting. And I want to get your thoughts, Jay.
Okay.
RFM, you too as well, obviously. But Jay, I want to get your thoughts as a never Mormon. How do you think this comes off of trying to solve people's problems by sort of creating thought-stopping techniques that end the discussion before it even starts?
This lady is a historian in the church historian's office.
Yeah, I don't know what her position is. I know that she is brought out to speak as an expert in solving problems in church history. That is what the topic is.
Okay.
Erickson, I know, is in the church history department, but I don't know about this lady or the others that were in the panel.
So as I have strived to grapple with the more challenging things in church history, I seek the Spirit. I seek greater conversation with the Lord through prayer, and I seek to go after sources that are building my faith, that are telling the truth transparently, but are seeking to build my faith in harmony with what the Spirit is speaking to me. I strive as I chat with people who are grappling with questions, to ask them to think really seriously about how they feel when they read certain sources. Do they feel the Spirit? Do they feel uplifted, even in the midst of confusion or worry about something? Or do they feel a greater sense of darkness and despair?
Hello, darkness, my old friend. When I finally realized that bad feelings could be a warning, could be something telling me that something's wrong.
You know, you guys talk a lot about the church inoculating people, and this is a bit, to me, this stands out as doing that. You are giving people enough of an idea to question, like, ooh, do I feel dark? Ooh, do I feel the Spirit? Like that could mean you heard some amazing music or are bummed that the Chiefs are losing to the Chargers right now. Like those things are, and then you're questioning the wisdom of your body. You're questioning your intuition and your gut, the universe, whatever you want to call that. And so by putting that a bit of a virus, it's intellectual vaccination against true logical discovery.
Yeah.
It's completely unacceptable, and it feels gaslighty.
Well, it is the textbook definition of confirmation bias, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
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 She could have just said, confirmation bias is your friend.
I mean, I may question my faith and question beliefs all over the place, but I never start with, well, how does this make me feel?
As a historian, that's my main concern. How does this historical text make me
Right.
feel? Oh, my word. This is an embarrassment. I'm glad we're capturing some of this because maybe this is going to disappear before too long.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean you think they're going to take it off?
It wouldn't be the first time.
I would.
Right?
Look, this is so bad that it would have been better not to have it at all. Because, of course, the whole idea was, look, we'll have a church history conference about, the problems. And then later on, so they can have something to point to and wave at and talk about, yeah, we've addressed all this stuff. We have conferences about this. When actually the conferences themselves have nothing to do with the actual problems in church history.
Yeah, it's super problematic.
For the believer, let's play devil's advocate for just a moment.
Ooh, my favorite.
She's saying darkness and confusion is a sign that you are not looking at the truth. Now, wait a minute. For just a moment, let's pretend we're in any other church. I'm in Scientology. I'm taught all the things that Scientology teaches. And suddenly I can't make sense of it. I've invested my life, my money, my time, my energy. I'm all in. And suddenly I learn things about my founder that my faith didn't tell me, that raise real credibility issues with the truth claims of the faith and with the credibility and character of its founder and its current leaders. What would I feel? What would be a normal set of feelings to feel in that moment? It would seem to me it would be darkness and confusion.
Yeah, shock, betrayal, fear, more shock.
Yeah.
That's what a human would respond to. And then they would start to question. It forces you to then question your reality, question how you think about how you think, even if you don't have the words for that.
Yeah. You would feel things, and it would be really normal to feel cognitive dissonance. It would be really normal to feel betrayed.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Have we all been there?
Oh, every day.
Yeah.
I think we've all been there. I think we all know that those are negative feelings. But yeah, this is the kind of gaslighting that I dealt with for decades, literally decades, which is this whole idea of if I'm feeling bad about something I'm learning, then that means that I shouldn't be learning it, but I want to learn it. But that means it's not true. But this stuff is true because it promotes my faith, because it confirms my bias.
And it also adds a level of shame that you're even questioning. So when they say like, oh, well, doubt your doubts, then that compounds the shame. And then you feel like you're doing something wrong on so many levels. It's just it's a real mindfuck.
By the way, compare this bench of church historians with the ones that were there in the 70s when Leonard Arrington was the church historian. I think there's a difference.
There's a difference.
They were actually learned humans.
They were trying to figure out things, and they wanted to talk openly about stuff. I'm going to say thank you, Jay. We're going to let you go, but thank you so much for joining the show.
Nice seeing you.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Bye-bye. All right. So Laurel, how are you doing? Welcome back.
Hello.
Sinead O'Connor. How you doing? You remember that from SNL?
No, I don't.
I'm sorry. That's like 1980s. I apologize.
I grew up without TV because I was such a repressed Mormon. We just watched movies. Yeah.
Are these guys answering your questions about church history? Are they solving any problems for you?
For me?
Yeah, well, any concerns you have about where things don't add up in Mormonism. Again, I think you're also a non-Mormon, correct?
I have about 1,000 places where things don't add up in Mormonism, but
They haven't addressed a single one tonight.
No, they have not.
No. What are your thoughts, Laurel?
I actually thought it would be fun to talk about. Well, I have two things I think would be fun to talk about. This concept that, people are always like, the ex-Mormons should be providing something to replace Mormonism. Or even the ex-religious should be providing something to replace religion. And I do believe that, this is one of those things, one of many, right? But I also believe that that burden should not fall upon those who leave an abusive system. So I thought that would be an interesting topic to talk about, because people are always mentioning it on the sly, but never really fully diving into it. And and the other thing I thought would be fun to talk about is, to what extent are we allowed to tell our stories, considering they involve other people and everything? And that's less of a Mormon question and more of a general question. It can apply to anyone who writes a memoir or whatever, but yeah.
In regards to the second, I spent a lot of time thinking about that sacred stories, I have a right to tell my sacred story, and no one else has a right to tell my story for me.
Or the way you want to tell it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And some of my sacred stories involve other people who have they're the actor on the stage for that story, and it has a different perspective to it.
Right.
And I have a right to speak up and say what my life experience is, so long as I don't trample on the responsible privacy of another and say it in such a way as to overextend myself into their version of the story. In other words, I don't get to say for them how it really happened. I get to say how I experienced it.
Or how you experience Mormonism is going to be different for everyone. And that's just going to be part of the reality,
And because there's no God, and because it's a nuanced, non-black and white world, I think sometimes you're in situations where you have a right to tell your story, and it's probably healthiest for you to be able to tell it. And it also is hurtful to the other person who part of that story interferes with their version of their sacred story.
Yeah. And even in the process of leaving Mormonism, I have found that Mormons view that alone as infringing on their story, right?
Yeah.
Because by leaving the church, you are claiming that it's not true. And that is what their reality and truth is, and their, identity. And so just by you making your own choices in your life, it can be perceived as an infringement on their truth. So.
Well, I guess they're just going to have to toughen up, huh?
I agree. What about this idea
if I'm an abusive system, I definitely want a rule in place that shames anybody who leaves from talking about how abusive my system is. Oh, what a cutie.
She's the best. This is Wooly.
Wooly. How are you doing?
And then we'll comment quickly on the first question. Remind me again what that was. And RFM, if you want to, I'll let you chime in first.
Yeah, that's the more interesting one to me, is the idea that a lot of people who are still in Mormonism or apologists for Mormonism are going to criticize you guys or anyone who is speaking against Mormonism and saying, well, if you're going to criticize it, then you have to provide an alternative.
Of course, that's stupid. That's another thing I'd like.
I agree, that's stupid.
It's an abusive institution, which is you can't say anything bad about me unless you create another abusive institution. In fact, you have to create an even more abusive institution before you can say anything bad about me.
Obviously, they're not talking about creating a new abusive system, but it's like, if a doctor cuts out a tumor, is he required to replace something in the place of that tumor? No. But also
sometimes they do, though.
Sometimes they do. But if you're the one that's choosing to leave, why are you required, if you're just speaking out to promote informed consent and create this kind of dynamic of accountability, why are you required to provide something better? Like that
I
is
tell you
not,
something. This is priceless. This is the priceless thing. This is the value thing. If I have just escaped from a burning building, right? I don't know why the burning building hates me for going back in to rescue other people.
yeah, exactly.
Similarly,
Thank you.
if I've just escaped from a burning building, I don't think it's incumbent on me to build a nicer building before I can go back in
Yes.
to rescue people.
Okay, that very well said. You don't have to build the new building for them all to live in because you're saving them from the burning building. That is the
Yes.
priority, you know? And also, like, all of the metaphors are flawed because we were all victims of a fraud, right? So it's like, it doesn't really matter if there's something better on the other side or not. It's not true. So you get to then say, okay, here's my path. I've got the fork in the road. I get to decide what to do with my life now. Like, just because I was told there was meaning and that ended up being false, that doesn't mean that I can't create my own meaning, or that there is no meaning, or that having no meaning is even a problem. Like,
Another
so,
angle here too, Laurel, is that doing a show like this, for instance, where you get to laugh and have fun, you get to have conversations with other people who've been on the journey the same as you, and everybody gets to go like, "Oh, we're processing this thing, and we're making peace with it." And the apologist or the believer will go, "You guys aren't making peace with it," but that's not true. Getting to sit around with friends and go, "This is what the hell happened to me," and to laugh about it. And to point out and try to help others who are just now starting to figure that out, all of that is cathartic. All of that is helpful to.
I agree completely.
So they don't get the right from inside an unhealthy institution to say what a healthy institution would look like that helps people.
They also they cannot relate. They truly cannot relate. They have not been on that other side of it. And you know, my speaking out occasionally on Mormonism has resulted in some backlash, but I'm like, yeah, that's fine, but this is not your group. Like, you rejected us, you made this an unsafe place for us, and so we created our own community, and that's okay. We are allowed to speak. Like, we find community in each other, and that is what we've created as a result of being rejected from this toxic community. And again, it's cool. It's okay. Like, yeah.
You know, many times the church and its leaders act like seventh graders.
I know. And the members, like,
and they treat you like
they can be so immature because I think they believe that all of their healing can be found in Jesus, and it's just not true. Like, they need fucking therapy, seriously. And they need to reprocess their trauma so their triggers aren't making them say totally inane and shitty things.
Yes, and we see so much inanity in what we hear at this historians conference. But you know what they need most of all, Laurel?
What?
They need Mormonism After Dark.
Yes, they do. Cheers to that.
Laura, I'm going to let you go. We've got 3 other people waiting, but great comments. Appreciate the questions. Have a great night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Cheers.
All right. So I'm going to play the next clip, and then we'll get Nunya. We'll bring you on, and we'll get your thoughts here. This is the closest they get to actually delving into a historical issue to help somebody figure out how to get their way out of it.
Okay.
And you'll notice she doesn't come very close at all.
Is this Valerie Bertinelli?
I don't no, this is not Valerie
No,
Bertinelli.
probably not.
Here we it's not Liza Minnelli either, so
no, I wouldn't have thought that.
Okay, here we go.
So I've had people before, you know, we talked about going to the right sources, having the Spirit with us as we're dealing with these things. I've had people before come up to me and talk about how either they or a family member were reading in Saints, or were reading in the Joseph Smith papers, or were reading a Gospel Topics essay, and they read about something like Joseph Smith's practice of plural marriage. And they've said, I read that and everything went dark, and it felt dark, you know, for a while.
Can you see why?
And so they were in right sources, right? They're in sources that are trying to build faith. and yet this issue still brought a feeling of darkness to them. So my question is, if someone is experiencing that, what advice would you give in terms of working through that?
Bill, can we hang on just a second? Because if I'm following this correctly in this discussion, somebody has already said, it was Keith Erickson, the fraud expert, right? The hoax guy, who said that if you start feeling bad about it or dark about it, whoa, then you don't want to go there. And now it's like the moderator guy is giving the question, assuming the opposite is true, and that you will get bad feelings from reading true church history.
Yeah. If you read if you have bad feelings and confusion, get the hell out of there. If there's darkness and confusion, get the hell out. And church sources might be what causes the confusion and darkness.
I bet somebody answers, well, you just keep studying your way through it, and then you arrive at nirvana where all of church history makes sense.
It's a very similar answer, but it's even weaker than that.
Oh.
Let's see here.
To that personally because I've had that experience. It was early on in my employment at the church history department, and I encountered some things on the topic of plural marriage that I found very troubling. And I was in good sources, but it went in contrast with what I had learned about plural marriage previously. I had, been taught, and I had read, and I had experienced that this was a really difficult principle for people to live.
What was it?
That Joseph Smith, was commanded multiple times to live this, and he resisted because it was very antithetical to what he thought was right. That Brigham Young, when he heard about it, he said, "I desired the grave."
He was so virtuous, that Brigham Young.
Live. Then I was encountering a source of someone who was a faithful Latter-day Saint who was thrilled by this idea. And so this just started this spiral, this darkness for me, of wondering what that meant about my value as a woman in the Lord's eyes, about what it meant for my testimony of the prophet Joseph Smith. And so many different things, so many questions just started crashing in on me. And the only way that I can describe it is I just felt this spiral. And I remember I was sitting at my desk just wondering, what do I do? What do I do with this experience? And luckily, the Lord was able to pierce through that darkness. And the Spirit whispered to me to go to the temple. It was at a time when the Salt Lake Temple was still open. And so I just hopped over there during my lunch break.
Thank God.
And I participated in the initiatory ordinance there. And for those of you who have experienced that, it's such an incredible manifestation of female priesthood power. And I felt in that moment such an overwhelming sense of love from the Lord, an overwhelming sense that I am of infinite and eternal worth in His eyes, worth no more, no less than any other person, including men, that I was a divinely loved and cherished daughter of God. It didn't answer every question. That experience didn't give me a line by line, written out perfectly answer to my question.
Any of them.
But it left me with enough peace and enough confidence in the love of the Lord that I was able to move forward. There are experiences that we will have with the truths of church history that will challenge us, that may put us in a dark place. And a lot of that is because of the emotions of shock or worry or concern that those events, those experiences can bring up. But what I always strive to do in my own life and for others is to wait until those emotions crest before I make any judgments or decisions, especially of an eternal nature.
Do they want you doing that with baptism? Do they want you waiting till the feelings crest before you make a decision to join the church?
Well, I don't know. Did she mean crest when they get as bad as possible to make a decision, or beyond that? I would think, hopefully.
Yeah,
But I don't know.
she
She
seems to
did
be
say
indicating that
crest.
that they move past the height, and
Yeah.
now you're beginning to process things and not feel as darkened and confused by the stuff.
Okay, so you're past the worst part before you
Yeah.
start making decisions of eternal significance. Between the part where I stopped talking and gabbing while this gal was talking, and the part where she said that she went to the temple, I was shocked and I was stunned, and you saw me paying close attention because that was the first true thing I have heard in a clip today. And I've listened to all these clips, plus a ton of clips from a talk that I'm doing an episode on for tomorrow evening. And that was a talk by a general authority. No truth in it at all. But what she just did was she told us a true story. And I could feel it, that this was true. This was real. But when she got to the part about going to the temple, okay, if you had this experience, God bless you. I think it's wonderful that you felt all this love and everything. That's a wonderful experience. The deal is, though, it doesn't do anything about resolving in real terms, at least in my opinion, the problems that were raised when you read about how Joseph Smith practiced polygamy. All those nasty, dirty details that you don't even want to talk about out loud at a conference that's dedicated to resolving them.
Yeah. She seems determined to say, hey, I went to the temple. I had an experience there. But as you point out, what I want to ask her is I want to say, okay, let's go back to the beginning. What were some of your questions about polygamy? Like, what were some of the actual things in polygamy that bothered you?
Yes.
And I hear that the temple gave you a spiritual experience, but did you come up with any solutions to those problems and all those questions? Because you said that you weren't able to get answers to all of your questions, but could you maybe tell us which questions you did get answers to?
Yeah, that means none.
Yeah.
When people use it that way, it means none.
It means none. She had to
Because
learn to live.
zero means I didn't get answers to all of my questions. Zero means that's not a lie to say that.
Her temple experience was just learn to live with these questions.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you are a person of infinite worth. Why is she questioning whether she has worth that's equal to a man? Because Joseph Smith is marrying everything that has a skirt on in Nauvoo. He's got 33 wives, and that's the conservative estimate. I always go with the conservative estimate. A lot of people think there's more, even up to 40. It's quite a range in there.
Yeah.
But he had at least 33 wives. Now, why would any woman, when finding this out, when she had been taught differently at church, like she said, right? And then she discovers that the church had been hiding the truth from her when it wasn't teaching her about this and teaching her an alternate whitewashed history. And she finds out that actually this is what was going on.
Yeah.
That's why it made her feel like maybe she wasn't worth as much as a man.
Yeah. 100%. Nunya, what are your thoughts here?
Well, can you hear me first off?
I hear you great.
Excellent. So I noticed that RFM is amused by my picture, which is initially why I'd connected up. However, my thoughts on this are she sounds like she's trying to use some of the trauma counseling that's done when you go through a traumatic event, which is when you're in the throes of those emotions, that you don't make it like any long-term decisions.
Right.
And usually it's counseled within 6 months of that event. You don't want to make life-altering decisions at that. Of course, there is no counseling for ecstatic joy and euphoria that people experience, because I'm pretty sure if we're all riding a high and let's say we won a big bet, it's like, hey, great, let's place another bet, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So no one ever counsels you to sit there and maybe take some time and get off of that euphoria kick.
I
to
was
let
not
yourself
counseled
come
to
down.
take any time to get baptized.
Exactly.
After the first discussion, hey, we just asked you to read and pray, and we just made sure that you were manipulated into having a really cool experience. Want to get baptized next Tuesday in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and make a lifetime commitment, paying 10% of your gross and spending all your time and energy during the week?
Would I? Peg leg, peg leg.
Dun, dun.
Oh, what an honor. Gosh, golly. Oh, I would love to pay like 10% for eternity.
Right. They get you at
A
that
bargain
moment.
at twice the price.
they intentionally capitalized on the highest moment you have as you're learning about their religion. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, thank you,
Oh.
Nunny. Anything else, my friend?
Yes, the explanation of the picture. I tried sending this to you guys in the chat, or the reasoning behind it. There's an ad that's going on YouTube in the shorts, if you notice from how this is clipped, this image. I got a screenshot of this. And who's that handsome devil right there that we've got pulled up?
Is that you?
No. Russell M. Nelson.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I recognized him. I thought you were referring to the guy in the upper left. But Russell M. Nelson, yes.
That's the woman.
Why is he in front of the woman?
Because in this ad, he's relaying some story about a service guy going over and cleaning this woman's house, and then it changes into a sales pitch for Get Your Priority Benefits USA.
Nice.
It's like bait and switch, and it was genuine enough to where I'm not sure if they rolled him out somewhere and like filmed his part of it, or caught it from a conference talk or something that he was using. And then they grafted this other thing, or if it was just an AI mishmash that somehow got involved and is in there, but it's in the ad somewhere in the shorts. Be on the lookout.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Nanya. You know what the church really is doing now is it's going around and it's presenting itself as a standard, ordinary, nothing to see here kind of non-denominational Christian church. And then when you join, you get to find out Mormons.
It's just the Church of Christ. Don't say Latter-day Saints. Don't say Mormon. It's just the Church of Christ.
Hey, baby, you just became a Mormon and you didn't even know it.
Hey, Tim.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine.
Tim, I'm loving your beard there. Did you just get that trimmed?
No.
It looks good, though.
I trimmed my mustache.
Can I play a soundbite for you and get your thoughts on this one?
Please.
Soundbite for Tim.
So here, this is Erickson intimating who is to blame for why we learned all the false things we did, Tim.
Please let it be me.
Oftentimes, working through a question like this, I'll use a little framework that answers a different question. Often as we seek an answer, it's helpful to just stop and say, well, what is an answer? How do I know when I get there that I've arrived in answer land? And I think there are 6 parts of an answer. And many times we feel something's not right or lacking, and it isn't because we found something bad, but we found it's incomplete and we need all of the parts. And so one part in the information age is information. We always need more information. We need better information. We need information from reliable sources. And that may be saints. And you may have accurate information about plural marriage in reading the saints' volumes. A second part of an answer is to eliminate errors. Because it's the information age, you will find erroneous ideas presented. Maybe they're things that we've just kind of always assumed they're part of our culture. Well, somebody at scout camp said that around the campfire. It must be true. And it's always just stuck, and it might be wrong. And we need to get rid of that.
The place where the false doctrine came from, Tim, might be the guy from the scout camp sitting around the fire and telling us the incorrect thing that we held forever.
Oh, no.
Yes, it was Ichigumi, the walking tree that stalks by night. That's that story. That's what happened. That's the thing that's wrong. I was really taken aback by the way that Keith Erickson talking about saints. Now, here's the thing. Saints is, if you don't know, that is the new official history of the LDS Church, written
Saints
by LDS
is garbage.
Church. Yes?
Saints is garbage.
Yes, but
yes,
it's
I know it's
garbage.
the official history. So
It's
we've done away
Mormon
with Joseph Smith. We've done away with
history.
B.H. Roberts. And now we have this piece of crap saint.
Now, you must hear me out on this, okay?
Okay.
Because if you replay this part, and you don't have to, Bill, but it struck me as Keith Erickson talks about the way that polygamy is portrayed in saints, which gave that the lady who spoke earlier a lot of trouble, right? But what he said was he made a point of saying that saints may portray polygamy accurately.
Saints may be the truth, and it
what
may
the
not.
hell is he doing?
Yeah.
What he's doing is he's trying to hedge every bet on the table in every table in the casino.
Yep. He bet on black and white and 0 and 00. Yep.
And red.
Oh, black and red. Sorry, I said white. Black and red and 0 and 00.
Why,
Yep.
why do you think he would say it that way, Tim? Did you catch that?
Because he's never been truthful in his life about anything, and he only knows how to obfuscate and gaslight. That's all he knows how to do.
Either avoid it or they're fucking liars. That's their
right.
only choices.
That's right.
First off, we have to define what an answer is. I like to think of answer as having 6 parts to the definition of an answer when we know we finally got an answer. And I see him looking at his watch and saying, how much more do I have to fill?
Do you know the one thing you can't say? The one thing he's not allowed to say is it's hey, everyone, we acknowledge that it was prophets, seers, and revelators over 200 years who disseminated all of the false views that we hold in the church. They either created them or they approved them, and the buck stops there. And let's talk about how we correct those. It's the guy.
You're right. Have you ever heard so much argumentation going of taking the responsibility away from the people at the head of the church who have the responsibility?
Yeah. It's crazy, Tim.
It's crazy.
It was Harry Truman who said, the buck stops here. It was Bill Clinton who said, the buck never got here.
Tim, what other thoughts do you have, my friend?
It's not just an LDS problem, though.
No.
I volunteered at a Veterans Museum, in San Luis, and the director didn't want anything negative about the military in there at all. He went to the library and he took books out that weren't positive about war. The guy had never been in combat. He was a Marine, never been in combat. He was an ex-Orange County cop. And there are people who were real veterans who've been in war, told, you can't do this, but he wanted to whitewash it. Anytime anybody wants to whitewash anything and get so irate about it.
Yeah.
You have to tell the whole story,
If you're going to give people the right to, and the ability to choose what's best for them and make informed decisions for themselves, you have to give people all of the information, or at least make it all available to them and encourage them to go to those places and look at it, to consider
That's
it.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, thank you, Tim. Appreciate
Hey,
the
Tim,
thought.
before you go, I got a riddle for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
What did Bill Clinton used to wear to keep his ankles warm?
Monica Lewinsky.
That's a good one. But the answer is his trousers. See you later, Tim.
Okay.
Have a good weekend, okay?
Take care. Okay. Bye.
All right, Sheila, we'll bring you on here in just a second. Here's a clip, and I'll get your thoughts, Sheila. Here's the clip of Erickson talking about the hiding the hiding of church history.
With Orson Hyde.
What? No, but yeah. Here we go. Hiding the hiding of church history. In other words, they say we hide things, we haven't hid anything.
Right.
I work in the church history department is I do have the opportunity to travel often and talk with people and about things that are challenging. And very often when people find out I work for church history, I'll get a reaction that's a little suspicious. They'll say, oh, I've heard of you guys. You hide the church's history. You don't want people to know about the church's history. And I usually answer with a big yes. That's exactly our goal. And because we're friends here.
Can you hang on just a second, Bill?
He's not lying when he does that.
No, and I'm so sorry, because this is the same guy, Keith Erickson, who just said that if you get into stuff that makes him feel bad in church history, whoa, we'll stay away from that. Are we supposed to think that when he's talking to people, he's going to be talking about the stuff that was whoa, let's stay away from that? Of course not.
Of course we're hiding things. Ha, ha, ha. He didn't lie. He says it as if it's a joke, but he also gets an out because it covers his ass. He's not lying. They actually are. Their job actually is to conceal things and make them harder to see. And I'll demonstrate that when we get to the end of this. But
That's like the general conference talk where they made a joke out of saying, some people even say that the brethren have some kind of big vault that they hide all of these documents in that they don't want the public to know about.
Yeah. That's the game these guys are playing.
Few minutes together. I'm going to tell you where we hide things so that no member will ever find them. And we found this place called the Gospel Library app, where if we put it there, it's guaranteed to remain hidden. But I'll start with two places in the app, and there are others, but I'll just share two. One, if you start on the main part of the app, where there are, the hymns and general conference, there is a section called Church History. And when you get in there, you can find information in narrative form. You can find it about topics from church history, about places. There's a little subsection in there about women's history and wonderful resources that we've put in there. The second place to note in the app, back out on kind of the starting level, if instead of choosing church history, there's one next to it called topics and questions. And if you choose that one, right at the top, there's a little place called Seeking Answers to Your Questions. And that teaches some principles for seeking, including centering your life on Jesus Christ and using reliable sources and these kinds of being patient with yourself and others. So there's some guidance there. We've also put some videos in there. You'll find three kinds of videos. One are from church leaders. The opening one is from Elder Renland of the Quorum of the 12, where they teach these principles about how to seek and find answers to your questions. A second type of video is there are people with expertise who will navigate through the different topics and issues. And the third category of video, there are experiences of Latter-day Saints. They're not trained historians, but they will share an experience of how they encountered something, what they did, and will illustrate the principles that are in there. But you can see the experiences of people working through their challenges.
Wow. I don't know what it is, but the more I watch this guy, the more hankering I get for carrot cake.
I don't know the reference there, but
well, look at him. Sheila, hang on. Can we bring Sheila on and ask if she gets it?
Hi, how are you doing?
Hey, Sheila, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Sorry if you might need a translation app, but
no, you're great. You're great. Look at this guy, Keith Erickson.
Sorry?
Does he make you hungry for carrot cake like he does me?
He makes me hungry to go get a gun and load it. To be honest, I wonder, do the glasses make him appear to be a more truthful historian? I don't know.
He's got a little bit of a Kenneth Branagh vibe going, don't you think?
Well, I mean, Scottish by birth, so he's more English. He's Irish.
Is he? Yes.
More correct.
He says they're not hiding anything, but you don't get to defend. You don't get to defend the argument that you don't hide things by pointing people to the things that you are comfortable with them finding. Let me ask,
to me, hiding now comes under the heading and category of disavow. And unless you're of the generation of RFM and myself, we're within a couple of years of each other. So I'm one of the children that attended a conference in a place called Drumchapel in Glasgow, where Bruce R. McConkie stood I was 9 years old at the time, and listened to what was, in its day, considered a mouth of authority. Whereas nowadays, there's no authority come from those that we expect the authority to come from. It has been devolved down to historians, apologists, and others.
Don't forget lawyers.
I don't know, is it the brethren are too afraid to speak out of their own mouths? I don't know.
But they also make it clear to these guys not to actually say anything, right? These guys are the ones put out front to talk about the history. The leaders don't want to touch it. But the leaders have, through one mode, explicit or implicit, through a whole bunch of modes, have told these guys don't talk about the history, though.
Yeah, and then of course they've got they can claim, oh well, what he said is not correct or whatever in the future. Can I just piggyback? RFM said something back. You referred again to the 1980s, and immediately Bruce R. McConkie popped into my mind. And that was a period of, I say this loosely, I suppose, but that really was a period when I grew up of an authoritative spokesperson who would teach you from the stand. You don't get that nowadays. That historian has just said, we don't hide, we go to the app, etc. What Latter-day Saint or Mormon of my generation is going to spend their valuable time and plow through an app, knowing that most of the information in there anyway is either not true, you've been lied to about, or it's just not worth your time to involve yourself in delving into that type of information.
You know, Sheila, I think the way that what he said was said to give the impression that he had said we don't hide anything, but I don't think he actually ever said that. I think what he said is sometimes, or I frequently get looked at strangely when they find out I work in the church historian's office and they ask me, you know, where do you hide stuff? And he says, well, I'll tell you where I hide stuff. I hide it in the place where nobody's ever going to find, and he makes a joke out of it, right?
Yeah.
So he gives it's an illusion of answering the question and denying it when he never denied it.
Yes, because it's almost like saying I hide it in the vault in the rock in Salt Lake. You know, that place where you only can get in if you've got a passcode or a key card or something that the general membership will never access in their lifetime. All that information. The other thing, I just, if I may, I don't want to take up too much of, in case there's somebody else waiting. The other thing that struck me was, again, going back to the question about polygamy. Isn't it interesting it was a female that addressed that?
Oh, that was quite planned.
There was a bit of a prelude with a male, but predominantly it was a woman that addressed that question.
Sure.
I find that so calculating.
Yeah, that's how I would have done it if I was running the show too.
Oh, terrible. And then she said that she goes to the temple to get a feeling of light. Well, you know, she implies that she feels lighter at the temple. Doesn't she get that the temple is the house of polygamy? Doesn't she get that? That is the place where polygamy is perpetuated. I was a State Relief Society president. A lot of this makes me angry because they lied to me for so many years. But what makes it even worse is they made me a liar for them. Because I remember having to give lessons about some of these topics, and the reaction from some of the women was so visceral when they spoke about these topics. And yet here we have a supposed historian trying to present it as if it's okay, it's not a problem that that we have polygamy. The problem is that I learned about it in church history. It just seriously.
Yeah. You point to something that I would call a mind fuck, which is the one place that Mormon women can go to experience some similitude of fairness and balance, which is only some ordinances of the temple. Other ordinances are extremely sexist. Right now, they've been they've been adapted and changed to be a little more friendly, but still not perfect. And that one place where you, at least in some ordinances, get to experience fairness and balance is the place that was created to manipulate you into loyally binding yourself to polygamy. Yeah.
Yes. Or in my case, because I've never married, or in my case, to covenant with a male that isn't even in my life.
Yeah.
So it kind of makes me angry. And then they spoke about darkness. Well, doesn't anybody's mind darken when they know they've been lied to?
Mm.
Isn't that really what the reaction is? Is your brain screaming, no, how could I have been so stupid to believe this, excuse me, crap?
How the hell could you not be confused? The thing you were told your entire life was true and dependable has holes at every place. Every truth claim has problems with it that look like they're in favor of the critic. Of course you're going to be confused. Your fucking world got turned upside down on its head.
Of course it did. It's the darkness of the pit of hell because you invested. I mean, I was a child of record, and I didn't find out about this until I was 61 years old. So I don't know if I'm fortunate or unfortunate that it took so long for it for me to become aware of it. But it's
How did that
the dark
happen?
pitness of the hell of discovering that every decision you made in your life, because you got a patriarchal blessing, which told you don't go and marry somebody that's not a member of the church, or wait for a worthy priesthood holder, so on and so forth. It's the pit of hell and of course it brings darkness to your mind when you find out that everything you've done in your life was a lie. It beggars belief, really. But and another thing is this conference, I'm assuming, is broadcast in Salt Lake. It's not a worldwide thing, because where do we access? We don't. So he's saying go and look in the app and all the rest of it. But this very conference that they're engaging in, we don't get to see it. I'm in Australia at the moment. I live in Australia, so we don't get to see this stuff.
Yeah, they didn't make a point of telling a whole lot of people it was happening. Now, maybe inside the church there were some major announcements, but I only heard about it within the last 24 hours or so, and obviously there weren't very many people there, at least in some of the snapshots of what was going on. So people either didn't know about it or didn't attend to fill the place.
You can see they had to put in some fillers in there. Yeah. But
anything else?
Anyway, I appreciate what you two gentlemen, you two handsome young men do. Thank you very much. I appreciate everything you do. I watched your most recent Mormonism Live on Joseph Smith's. Oh God, I didn't know anything about. I mean, I've been a member all my life. I didn't know anything about that.
No,
nothing.
Unless you take the extra time to research it, or you go listen to somebody talk about it who's done the research, you'll never know that everything the church tells you about its story is not true.
That's right. So you only dealt with I don't know how many you dealt with. Was it about 15 of them or something?
Yeah, about a dozen or so. Yep.
There's about 34. So it'd be interesting to find out what the others are, even if it was just put in a summary form or something. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. Appreciate
You're so welcome. Thank you for calling.
I'll just say back to the clip we just showed. He says we don't hide the history. So my question is, where was the 1886 John Taylor revelation prior to their recent release of it? And what had the church officially said about that revelation?
What an excellent question, Bill.
Where was the Council of 50 Minutes prior to its release just a few years ago? Where was the 1832 First Vision account prior to Joseph Fielding Smith placing it back into Smith's journal and taping it back in place? And where is William Clayton's journal today? And the answer to all of those questions is we kept it from you. And it doesn't take, the New York
Times. They're
Times.
hiding it is the answer.
They're hiding it.
They're hiding stuff.
In 2000
stuff. And this is so great what you're saying. Look at the things that they've released in recent years. Where was it before that? They were hiding it.
Yeah. You only have to ask the church, why in 2014 was that the very first time in correlated curriculum that I learned that my founder, Joseph Smith, was a polygamist. Like, why? You keeping that from me, do you not see that as hiding things? I would love to ask these questions, but see, these guys who are here to answer the questions will never field those questions.
No, their answer has to be, we didn't hide it from you. We just put it in a place where you couldn't find it.
Yep. And so I want to end off. I've got two really short clips. These, I think, are less than a minute each. And now that we've established that no matter what happens, what they're not going to do is actually engage as good faith actors to help people get walked through the problems of church history and offer resolutions for them. And as you pointed out, it didn't go well in the Swedish rescue.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't go well in the Boise rescue.
They're getting smarter. They're trying not to answer the questions now.
And they don't do rescues anymore because those don't go well.
No survivors.
And after all of that, now they want to tell you that their job is to listen to you and to understand you, when that's the last thing they actually want to do. Here is Claire. I think this is Claire.
The moment I met you, I swear.
So here she goes.
I appreciate your the application that you've each made of church history in your life.
And I want to say this is the most genuine moment of the entire session. This lady says, what should we do to love and support people who leave the faith?
I just wondered if you could speak to acknowledging, loving the people who have left, especially in our own personal lives.
I think the way that you frame that question is really important, is that we show love and understanding to those who have, especially with questions of church history, have made the choice to step away. But I think acknowledging that there are challenges in church history, that there are difficult questions, and that for some, not having those answers it's too hard to allow those primary questions to facilitate the gap between what we know and what we wish we knew. And so with those in my own life who have experienced this, my impulse is always to strive to be loving and also to be a listening ear. But then also in the same breath to be clear about what my own feelings are. I think we don't want to shy away from the things that we know to be true, or the experiences that we've had, allow other people's experience to minimize our own experience. I think it's about leading with love, but also with our own confidence and faith, that those don't have to be mutually exclusive, that we don't have to hew to our testimonies of truth or our experiences that have helped us to stay, or to love those that have left. It doesn't have to be an either or situation, that we can be true to both of those things, both of those principles at the same time.
I'm starting to like her more and more. I think Valerie is my favorite on the panel.
Yeah. She frames the problem for people who leave is that they encountered not being able to find answers. And I think that's dishonest, because I think the fact is that most of those people did find answers.
Mm-hmm.
The answers they found contradict the truth claims of the church. She pretends like everybody goes around going like, there's these questions and I just couldn't figure out how to get to the end of the question and know what happened. And so I just left because I had questions with no answers. And that's just, you're painting people as stupid. You're painting people as being foolish. And, I didn't know what I had for, I didn't know what this was. So I avoided.
I didn't know what was in this Big Mac.
Yeah. No, they got their answers. They figured out that the church's narrative didn't hold up. They drew conclusions that were more rational, and they know why they don't believe. And you're painting them as just being clueless.
I think this is an important point you bring up, because it does highlight the fact that when apologists say answers in this context, people leave because they couldn't find answers. What they mean is faith promoting answers. It's built into it. They don't say it, but it's there all the time.
Yeah. And
which also means, and it shows, that they will not accept any answer that is not a faith promoting answer, because any answer that's not a faith promoting answer is not an answer at all.
And she talks out of one side of her mouth that we need to recognize that there's reasonable issues in the church for people to struggle with and to step away, and that we should try to understand them and listen to them. But she doesn't actually want to do that, because she's part of a conference that has insulated itself away from that very thing. I don't get the feeling she really wants to sit down and wade through these issues and help the person who has questions figure out what the truth is. Even if the truth is the church isn't true, you should be allowed to work through that.
Yeah.
They're not really about listening or understanding. And then this gentleman steps forward and says the same damn thing. He acts like he's like, oh, we'll just listen and hear these people, but that's not at all what's going on.
Oh, Mr. Bean again.
It is about that love that they feel it's genuine love. It's not somehow dependent upon whether they, accept or change or deal with something. And that they feel like every time they see us, we're not preaching at them and saying, you got to just accept this, or I'm telling you how to think on this. And that they feel they can come and talk to us, and we can talk about common ground. We can listen to their concerns. And even if they're not our concerns, or they don't challenge us, they do challenge them. And we can acknowledge that. And so, it's not for us to decide what path they take, but whatever path they take, we continue to love them, and we continue to be there. And if they want to come back to us and, help to address that particular problem, great. But if they don't, that's fine. We still love and accept them.
Yeah. So there's that. This is how we help people with questions in church history.
Can I just say that the number of Mormons who say that they will love and accept people who leave the church is a lot bigger than the Mormons who actually will do that.
Yeah. It's lip service. They don't want your questions. They want you to go away. You can only come back if you're willing to pretend it all adds up and not ask follow-up questions, not try to figure out what the truth is at the end of any of these paths of problems in church history. This is all a game. Talking about games, by the way, let's spend a moment here. We're 18 minutes past, so we'll wrap up here quickly. But you had a couple of things, and one of them I said at the very beginning, like, you weren't clowning around. Do you want to share a little thing that you caught wind of a week ago or so?
Oh, hasn't everybody seen this new video that Kwaku's put out? Kwaku has got a music video which he advertises as being low budget, and you get 5 seconds into it and you go, no shit, that's low budget. But this is Kwaku behind the mask, behind the wig, behind the fake nose is our good friend Kwaku, trying to make it big in the world of music videos.
And we'll play about 5 seconds of this so you can get a feel for Kwaku the clown.
Yeah.
Stab me in the back, will you feel on me? Guess that's how they do it in Arizona. Lies are clear, but I couldn't see. I was so blind, had a...
So there's Kwaku the clown.
Apparently Pennywise had a bad experience in Arizona.
Yeah. I don't know what the hell this is. I don't know. When you're a guy like Kwaku and you've got dreams, and ever since you were a little kid, you're like, I want to be an actor. I want to be a performer. I want to be in front of the crowd. I want to be a circus guy. I want to be
wanting to be a clown. Maybe this is a fulfillment of a lifelong dream.
It might be.
Yes.
Yeah. Dun, 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 dun.
So anyway, we're watching for that one to go up the charts and have Dick Clark announce that it's in the top 40 this weekend.
Somebody said, keep playing the video. No, it'll end up being a copyright strike if we play a ton of it. We just wanted to let you see a little bit of Kwaku and comment on it.
I think I cross-referenced things wrong. Dick Clark, American Bandstand, Casey Kasem, top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. Here we are at 94.3, The Hits.
And here on number 38 with the bullet is Kwaku L with I Hate Arizona. And I'm the clown.
What a class act that guy is. All right.
Yeah, he's great.
Yep. Anything else from you? Anything else you want to talk about before we head out of here?
I want to talk about tomorrow night's show, dang it. But I'll just tell everybody that RFM is going to be doing a big old show tomorrow night. It's very, very tedious. I got to tell you, so tedious. It's labor intensive, but it's a labor of love, damn it. And it's one of these things where I go into a talk and I do clips from the talk and I respond to the clips. So there's a whole lot of editing that goes on. And, my right hand is almost cramped from holding this mouse all day long and moving it around. Swear to God, it's from the mouse, and that's it, everybody. Okay, it's the mouse. And then it is a talk from Elder Ahmed Corbett of the 70. And the reason I'm doing that is because turns out, Fair Mormon, now Fair, that had their conference, their little conference, their general conference thing a couple of weeks ago. Elder Corbett spoke there. He was the keynote speaker. He was the blessing and benediction of the LDS Church on Fair Mormon. And they've been sending officers and authorities in the church to the Fair Mormon Conference for a number of years now. And this was his year. And so what he talks about for 46 minutes, what he talks about is why it is that he believes that even though past prophets have goofed things up and gotten things wrong, we can still trust today's prophets to tell us the truth. Yeah, it doesn't go over very big. In fact, I sort of frame it as an open letter or an open episode or open podcast, whatever you'd call it now. An open letter to Elder Corbett to tell him and let him know that I listened to his talk and why it is that I find every one of his arguments unpersuasive.
Bad arguments. Yeah, there's a lot of those, aren't they? Fallacies, making arguments that you claim are sort of one thing is connected to the other, but they really aren't. And leaders of the church and its apologists seem they seem to really struggle with logic, don't they?
They really do. I think this guy is a lawyer too. I'm not sure there are so many of them. And yet, I don't know. I think I feel especially disappointed when a lawyer engages in bad thinking.
Yeah.
Not that I haven't seen it. Not that I haven't done it myself. But come on. I think he knows these are crappy arguments, but he's in there pitching anyway.
Yeah. Your friend McKay, I mean, in the same sentence at the very beginning that he said we ought to seek out sources that are true and transparent, that we also ought to seek out sources that lead us to faith. And I'm just here to tell you can't do both of those. You've got to pick one. Well, check that out. Radio Free Mormon tomorrow night. You thinking like 7 p.m. tomorrow?
I'm thinking like 7 p.m. It's 2 hours. Is it? No, it's 1 hour and 20 minutes. By the way, original length was 2 hours and 5 minutes. Over the course of today, I edited off 45 minutes of a 2-hour episode. And most of those are like a matter of seconds or less than a second. So it's just a lot of editing. And every edit is its own process. Bill knows what I'm talking about. He taught me the ropes.
Yep. So that will hit tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Folks, we so much appreciate you being here as fans, followers, supporters, donors. We appreciate you interacting with the content that we create. And we hope that we've been helpful to you over the years and that you enjoy this new show format, Mormonism After Dark. If you do, please do go into the live chat. There's a link there to support us. There's a donor box, Mormonism-After-Dark. You can go there and donate to this show. We'd very much appreciate it. Check out Radio Free Mormon tomorrow night at 7 p.m. on the channel. And otherwise, we'll catch folks Monday night, 6 p.m. for the newscast. Wednesday night, Mormonism Live at 6 p.m. And then we'll see you back here on the other side for the next episode of Mormonism After Dark at 8 p.m. And appreciate all of you and have a great night, everybody.
Thanks for joining us.
Bye-bye.